Okay, so my runner-up for EV of the year is the EV lease loophole.
That's not an EV.
No, but it is. It makes every EV a better deal. How many vehicles? Let's zoom in on Hyundai Kia. How many vehicles did they sell this year because of that loophole? You'd have to think it's 75%.
The vast majority of them.
Yeah, right. So I'm not saying 75% were leases, but I am saying 75% of those that made a decision to buy one took that option into consideration. And that's why it's my runner-up.
Welcome back to the EVOG podcast. For this episode, it's episode 10, and this will be our 2024 year in review. So if this is your first time here, I'm Brian G., the EVOG, and this is our 1-year anniversary, Adam. Can you believe it? It's been 1 year since the EVOG has been a thing.
I love it. I'm into it. It's definitely exciting, and I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah, man. This would not have happened without your counsel, guidance, partnership. So I want to start out there with thanking you, and then also want to thank everyone that's subscribed, everyone that's viewed the content here. I had a goal going into 2024 of, really just adding my voice to be able to share experiences, connect with other EV enthusiasts, and continue learning or help others learn. And I never wanted this to be singularly focused, right? I wanted us to focus on diversified EV topics. And I think we've held true to that over the course of the last year. So definitely looking forward to building on that. But I had a goal of 1,000 subscribers, hit that pretty early in the year. And now we're at about 1.4. Did 52 videos this year and about 12 shorts. And as I said, this is podcast number 10 on January 1st, 2025. So those are some of the statistics. Why don't you talk a little bit about Adam's Everything EV?
So beginning of the year was like I got a phone call saying my Fisker was being built. I took delivery end of February. We all lived that nightmare together. And as I've moved away from Fisker physically with the vehicle, I've tried to diversify my topics a little bit, and I'm just, I'm feeling more at home all the time, Brian, and that's really all I'm looking to do is just continue moving forward. And I'm really excited for 2025. I think we are moving out of this trough of disillusionment, and hopefully 2025 will be the year that we get some real major mainstream adoption for EVs, and I'm all for it. I'm here to report and process and live vicariously through other creators. I definitely thank my audience for watching, especially your audience for tolerating me as well. So yeah, man, I'm just excited. I'm really glad to be here, and it's been a pleasure working with you. And over the last 12 months, we've both, I think, come a long way.
Yeah, well, let's see how we can build on it. Before we wrap up today, we'll talk a little bit about plans for FY25. I got to get out of work mode. For calendar year 2025, we'll talk about that towards the end. But I didn't mention this up front. But this week we added EV number 9 over the last 11 and a half, almost 12 years to the EVOG household, with my son buying his first new car and his first EV. I'm not going to reveal what he got, but it's our 9th EV, as I mentioned, across now 5 brands. in about 12 years in this household. So I'm excited to share some of that in an upcoming video. And in one of your more recent videos, you did something similar with your son.
Yeah, I just got a Bolt, and I am going to also leave a little bit off the table here today. I'm not going to reveal the price. It's definitely the major point of curiosity. But yeah, I took a major journey, 488 miles with no CCS charging, and the Bolt, as far as I know, is like an 80% charge. I think I might be able to charge it to 100, but I'm not sure because of software. Some of them are stuck at 80, which I'm totally okay with for the life of the vehicle. But it really hurt me on my trip. The video is live on the channel. You can check it out. I think it's kind of an in-depth education in, I guess, emergency charging. And I think that it's something that people are going to need to learn, because that peace of mind, the level 2 network, is, I think, paramount to EV adoption, even though people might not consider it that way. But knowing it's there, knowing how to use it, knowing where to find it, and being able to navigate it when necessary is just super important. Coming from somebody who lives in a massive EV desert with almost no DC fast charging. So, yeah, great video. My son is over the moon. We discovered how to use the one pedal driving on the Bolt this week, thanks to viewers who had watched the video and told me, hey, man, it does have one pedal driving. So he tried that out today, and it was ear to ear, man. He was just absolutely excited. And I didn't even go. Him and my wife went out and took a couple adventures, and they're smitten with it. I've gotten everything done to it. I got a big video coming out on everything that I've done so far to the Bolt. We all know buying a new car, there's a lot to do, and buying a used car, I believe, in my opinion, there's even more. So I've got all of that ready. He's got the keys, and I'm excited for your reveal, even though I know exactly what it is. But it just makes me even that much more excited, because you guys made a really, in my opinion, great decision on what to get. And the candidates that it narrowed down to before you made your selection was also, in my book, extremely good. And I won't give anything more away. But yeah, man, I'm so totally excited for my son to enjoy his new EV. He's really, really excited.
Yeah, I mean, it all speaks to your earlier point of EV adoption really expanding here in 2025. Now, one of the things that is likely to impact that was, one of the big things from 2024, which was the election, right? And the fact that we've got a new incoming administration where, there's some concern about that administration's stance on continuing to incentivize the adoption of electric vehicles and everything else that's adjacent to that, right? The manufacturing of battery plants and so on. So that is one of the first topics I wanted to get your take on, because there's a lot of speculation out there. Some of it is well founded, but what do you see as some of the post election fallout or expectations with the new administration coming in here in a few weeks?
Well, I've distilled it down to kind of two things, and one is up in the air completely. The other is a necessary evil at this point and is unstoppable. But the two major topics, in my opinion, are China and, of course, that EV tax credit. Now, on the EV tax credit, we do have a little bit of good news on that front. If I can just share with you very quickly here, let me, and we'll there. I'm revealing. I'm pulling my cards out here. But yeah, I want to show you this. This is the 2025 federal tax credit list of vehicles. There are some really exciting things on here. Number one, just if I scroll down, can you see it, Brian?
I can, yes.
Okay, so if I scroll down here, the one thing I want to notice alphabetically is there's no Volkswagen at all. So that was the first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed is a single motor Cybertruck. That's really good news. That means that Elon might not be fighting this EV tax credit, and he may be trying to take advantage of it. This would have had to been submitted previously. This is breaking news, kind of, as far as when this video is being published, but a single motor Cybertruck at the original published price from when the Cybertruck was unveiled of 60,000. That's what, 52,990. The way that, Tesla does their end of dollar sign, they're always 990. But 53 grand is kind of a guess, but 52,490. But we're looking at a $53,000 Cybertruck potentially, and that's really good news for people who basically don't want to give that full $80,000 commitment. And it's, of course, bad news for those who didn't take the tax credit. Also, right beside it is the dual motor Cybertruck, which means if you spec it with, bare bones, absolutely no boxes ticked, right now you can earn a $7,500 tax credit on a dual motor Cybertruck. That's fairly exciting. I mean, I know the $7,500 tax credit has been a point of contention with you, and whether or not you make a decision to buy or lease. And I think it's in everybody's top of mind when they start making that final purchase decision. So that's really cool to look at. The next thing is Kia and Hyundai. If you look here, the EV6, EV9, Ioniq 5, and Ioniq 9 are all on the list for the $7,500 tax credit. And with the quality of a vehicle and the value for money that you already get with a Hyundai, I think that these are championship level. It's great. Just the best news you could possibly imagine. It's just really, really good to see those automakers having an offering on the $7,500 tax credit list. Will this tax credit survive? We don't know. But what's not on this list, and if you go through really quickly, we've also got the Genesis GV70 electrified, which is their actual, that's a gas car with an electric system. The F-150 Lightning has qualified. The Mustang Mach-E does not, but that's kind of good news. And I'll talk about that later. But the only Stellantis product is the Pacifica plug-in hybrid. And then you've got your GM, which is the Prologue, the ZDX, the Lyriq, the new Optic that's coming out, the Blazer EV, the Equinox EV, and the Silverado EV. So a big list, definitely some key automakers missing. But this Cybertruck, I think, gives me a little bit of confidence on whether or not Trump will be fighting and his administration, as well as the U.S. Congress, which is inevitably who's going to have to pass a legislation that would eliminate the tax credit. But it may not be on the top of their list to eliminate the tax credit. Now, there may be other things done with tariffs, a lot of raw materials and battery minerals and all kind of other different products are sourced from different countries, and we all know tariffs are on the table for 2025. So in summary, that's that end. And then the other end would be China. Will there be a difference in opinion of the swing? Now, we've all seen the Democratic and Republican parties both kind of support the tariffs that Trump installed during his previous administration. Biden didn't really remove any of that stuff. So that'll be exciting to see whether or not tariffs will have another effect. Right now, there's a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. Will they decide to assemble in Mexico? Will there be a Mexican tariff? All that stuff. But I believe that the Chinese penetration of the world auto market will be the next thing to look at and to look, through that lens with in 2025. Now, I don't know whether or not China can offer a competitive offering at half the price of currently available US EVs, but I wouldn't be surprised if they could. So we will see. And then obviously regulatory bodies will have to approve the vehicles, which is a whole nother hurdle. But man, there's a couple. That SU7 by Xiaomi is, obviously the big one, the star of the Chinese EVs, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, I wanted to offer that and then kind of ask you what your take is on, what's going on. But the China and that federal tax credit are definitely my two.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. We could do the entire episode around, that specific subject matter, right?
For sure. We should do one of those later. We should maybe episode 11.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't want to get too far away from it, but like you said, single motor Cybertruck is huge news, right? That is breaking news, and I'd like to think that this means that we'll see that variant actually produced, right? Because Tesla has done this before, where they've telegraphed that base model and then ultimately just never built it, right? With other models in the stable there. But I think a single motor Cybertruck that's in that 50K-ish range, right? Yeah, it's about 10K north of where it was in 2019 when it was announced. But, assuming the specs are pretty decent, I think that thing will sell and sell extremely well.
Yeah.
So that's huge news.
I think there'll be a smaller battery. They'll probably have a smaller battery, less range. There may be other things missing, like four-wheel steering probably is off the table. But
Yeah, for sure.
regardless, man, that form factor is very popular and people want it. And I know there are people that I mean, it's hard to shell out 80 on any car.
Yeah, but that's becoming very much the norm, especially with EV pickup trucks, right? And so if they can bring that EV pickup truck price point down into the low 50s, that's really going to put a lot of pressure on Ford and GM and all of the other OEMs.
That's price parity, right? That's, I mean, we're talking,
Absolutely.
yeah. So that's like EV, it doesn't matter. Take the EV away. It's just truck price parity. It is a competitive truck, period. So yeah, I totally agree. I didn't know if you'd seen that news, but I wanted to break it because
No, I'm glad you shared it. I hadn't seen that, so that's actually huge. One of the things I was thinking about as you were sharing the list there, I don't think I saw the Model S, so it was conspicuously absent from the list, which I thought was interesting. As long as the list of Tesla models it was interesting to me that the Model S wasn't included there. So I'm not sure what that means.
well, I mean, it could be good news. It could be bad news. They could be canceling the Model S. Yeah, my two guesses are they're canceling the Model S this year or an LFP Model S. Those are the two guesses for me, is that they'll continue to produce the Plaid, but they'll bring an LFP Model S to where, because if you can sit that Model S in, because they're missing a category right now, right? A $50,000 Model S, even if it has less range and less power, I mean, you have a Model S, that's a luxurious car. And if you can offer something like that in the 50s, I mean, and especially in LA,
See, I don't think Tesla would go that route
you don't think so?
with their flagship. I think, and I know you had shared this with me in a prior conversation. I think it's just going to become a Plaid high performance sports sedan, right? And then if you need to go further downstream from there, then you're looking at the Model 3, right? Model 3 Highland, which in a lot of different venues is like car of the year for 2024, right? So that's what
We'll
I
get to
see
that.
them doing more so.
And we'll get to that. Car of the year 2024. Did you make some picks? Because we'll get to that.
I did, and we'll, like you said, we will get to this. I do want to go back to the China tariffs for a second. I do think that we're going to continue to see those. They may even be expanded. We do have NAFTA, so as much as Trump has kind of telegraphed looking to apply tariffs on goods made in Mexico and made in Canada. I don't think that'll be as easy for him to implement based on that NAFTA treaty than he might think. So hopefully that continues to sort of hold things at bay. Having said all of that, I don't see a scenario by which this market, the U.S. market, or even North American market outside of Mexico, I don't see us getting access to any of those Chinese vehicles. You mentioned the SU7, the one that really stood out to me that I would love to, put a deposit on and own potentially is the MG Cyberster, right? They've got that in the UK. It's made in China, and I mean it's a large convertible two-door SU two-door coupe that has, what are those, suicide doors that go straight up,
Yeah.
right? So that car is just absolutely gorgeous, and it's got a ton of features, great range, and it's just kind of a convertible cruiser, and there's nothing like that currently in our market. So it's kind of a bummer that we don't get to, and I don't think we will for at least a couple more years, be able to see any of those Chinese models coming in. Right, the Chinese models that we will see are sort of camouflaged in a sense, like Polestar, which frankly, they're actually moving production here to the US. But some of the initial models, like the initial Polestar 3, right, was not made here. That was made in China. Um, I think the initial batch of Polestar 4s similarly weren't made here. But ultimately, they're going to be moving production here. So we'll get some of them, but only those camouflaged ones that come from established brands that have already been operating here in the US.
Right, and we all know about the EX30 controversy where, that was
Yeah.
Chinese made, and then obviously the tariff was just bad timing. Also, in regards to NAFTA, in 2020, on his way out, uh, Trump changed NAFTA to the USMCA, which I'm not totally familiar with, but it does change automotive restrictions. So, to your point, that trade agreement between Canada and Mexico is definitely going to be something people chat about. And I also agree with you on the fact that just adding a tariff, I mean, if there's anything that could, and this is total speculation on my part, but if there's anything that could crash the US economy instantly, it would be a 25% tariff on everything. I just it's inevitable because so many things in every facet of what we do, eat, carry, touch, wear, everything comes from those two partner countries. So, yeah, definitely good point there. What
Now, how do you see all of this impacting the new and used EV market here in the US? I mean, there were some really good deals out there at the end of 2024. And technically, a lot of them are still going to be in place up until tomorrow, which is January 2nd, is when some of the incentives that we were looking at in my son's search, they didn't expire at the end of December 31st. Those incentives went until January 2nd of this year, so until tomorrow. But what's your overall sense of the new and used EV market?
The most compelling thing that I can find, and I accidentally shared it very quickly, is the BZ4X and Solterra, because the used EV tax credit is 30% or 4,000, whichever is less, and it's always 4,000 pretty much. But it's a $4,000 tax credit on an EV that hasn't received it yet. And the Solterra and BZ4X just qualified today, literally the first, by being 2 model years old. So if we're looking at 2023s, I got one here. There's a Solterra premium all-wheel drive. That's a very, very well-spec'd vehicle. I test drove that. I got a video on my channel, 14,000 miles. We're looking at $19,100. That is insane amount.
That's before the additional 4K.
Oh, absolutely not. You have to assume all these prices on here have already applied this. But in the event that it is, I mean, either way, 19,000 for,
Yeah.
essentially a new car is insane. And there are many options like this one right here, 2475. The 24.5, excuse me, for a 5,000 mile premium all-wheel drive Solterra, that's a $20,500 car as of today. And so, if I'm looking for an EV, I'm probably looking at that. I'm also looking at the BZ4X, which is the cousin. I've got those pulled up as well. And I got a limited, which is completely loaded, limited Toyota BZ4X all-wheel drive, 40,000 miles, 22,495. That's 18,495 for a newer, you know, decent range, 200-mile range, every option you could think of, self-driving stuff, because it's the limited, it's completely loaded BZ4X, which is really, let's face it, an electric RAV4. if you're trying to compare it to a gas car. So I really think that those in that vein. Also, I mean, obviously we can look at the benchmark, which is the Model Y. Here's a 21 for 19,994. That becomes 17,994. Can you imagine a Model Y for 17 grand? In 2021, I bought that exact same car for $57,000. So that's definitely it. I mean, look at these prices. Then these are just, it's just example after example. So if you want to go high mileage on a Model Y, you're well under 20 grand at this point. Those are kind of my highlights, but
But this makes the point that you alluded to earlier in terms of where I stand on it, right? Unless you're in a position to, either based on your own income or the status of the vehicle that you're interested in terms of the vehicle's qualification for that $7,500 credit, you really have to consider leasing as an option, because leasing has the loophole where, regardless of your income, you can take advantage of the $7,500 tax credit, right? But absent that, the used EV market, I think, is fraught with so many different options for folks to take advantage of. You just gave some great examples, and there's going to be more and more of those coming onto that list.
Yeah, and I mean that your compliance cars at this point are now under 10. And if we go back,
It's crazy.
if you go back to 2021, there was nothing under 10, like literally nothing. You couldn't buy four wheels and a steering wheel for under 10. So I'm seeing Leafs for 3,000, things of that nature. So the used market. But the reason I didn't mention it is because I knew you would touch on it. Is if you are outside of the requirements for the tax credit, the EV lease is just, it's impossible to beat. And there's a lot of options. I know I don't
Or
want
the used market. I mean, you and I were talking about some vehicle options like the Porsche Taycan, right? You can get a 1 or 2 year old, gently used, low mileage Porsche Taycan for north of a 50% discount of what it sold for less than 2 years ago, right?
and
Taycan is one example. Lucid Air is another, right?
yeah, those are 50. Yeah, those are 50 now.
Yeah. So just some really good options that are out there, and almost all of them now have supercharger access with
Yes.
the benefit of an adapter.
So one thing I do want to touch on, because this is where, I don't know, people are coming with the FUD. There's always a FUD zone, like a fear, uncertainty, and doubt zone, like a specific thing that people who are against EV adoption are trying to highlight. And depreciation must be considered with the tax credit. So when you say, oh no, this car's lost 50% of its value, add 7,500 back to that, because every person, because 50% of MSRP is fine, but that's not what people paid. It's basically every Stellantis. You go to a Jeep dealership and they're like, well, yeah, it's 65,000, but for you, it's 55. And that's every EV. There's just a massive discount on every EV. So this depreciation, being, insane or over the, it's not true. People did not pay those MSRP prices for these vehicles. And that means the tax credit is working. That is literally why government incentives are assigned to these vehicles. It is so we can adopt a new technology that can help us move forward as a society in general. I just wanted to put that out there. I know it's not on the list.
No, that's a great point to remind folks, right? I always think about that when I think about our Rivian R1T, right? We were able to use the transition rule to get the 7,500. And because we were early reservation holders, we were in before the $20,000 roughly price increase that they made back in, I think that was March of 2022 or 23.
Yep.
Yeah, 23 is when they made that decision. So, I mean, on that vehicle, we saved, what's that math? 18 plus, north of 25K. Right. So it certainly helps to be reminded of that when you start to look at, what the current residual value is if you were to sell or trade that vehicle in. Great reminder there.
Yeah. What else we got on the docket here?
So some of the levers, before we get too far away from 2024, I do want to get your thoughts on some of the, because you've asked me this question in prior podcasts. I'm turning it around to you. What are your thoughts on some of the demand levers, if you will, that Tesla in particular was using with free supercharging with the Model S and X? And then in the 11th hour or 11th hour and 45th minute, right, they did the same thing with the Cybertruck Foundation series. What are your thoughts on some of those levers being pulled?
Here's the deal. None of these conversations take place without Elon Musk and Tesla. I'm not a fanboy. I might not even be considered a fan at this point, at least of the individual, but none of these conversations take place. They've been able to get to scale and cross the profitability threshold. At that point, man, if you own the market, do what you must. I think that those that took advantage, my cousin took advantage. He was able to get a Model Y for under 38K after my referral, and it's like 0%. I believe he chose a 0.99% financing with a longer term. I mean, get the car. At the end of the day, you and I, we can argue about politics or positioning or market penetration, but at the end of the day, Tesla features win 10 out of 10. You cannot beat, include, find a vehicle on earth for sale that has the features that a Tesla has. With those two things in combination, if you took advantage of any of those, especially the Cybertruck, I mean, if you really were going for it with, hey, I really want this, then I'm glad you did it. And on top of that, we also spoke about clientele, right? Someone who wants a Foundation Series Cybertruck is not a person who is making a decision based on, I'm frugal or this is the best deal. They want everything. I want to press every button. I want all-wheel drive. I want four-wheel steering. I want all the speed. I want to be able to feel like I have the best example. And
Yeah, but there's two things to consider with the so-called Foundation series. I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
sure,
Right. Number one, it hasn't turned out to be what it purported to be at the beginning. Right. There were supposed to be like 1,000 Foundation series Cybertrucks built. I think by and large, we know that number um, has been multiplied many times, right? There's a lot more than that finite number of 1,000-ish Cybertrucks that are out there. That's point one. Point number two is the fact that some of the stuff that was supposedly included, right, in the Cybertruck value package, right, to justify the additional 20K, are no longer included in Foundation series bought out of inventory now, right? And I'm referring specifically to the bidirectional charging setup, right? They pulled that when they pulled this demand lever with free supercharging.
and I think that's okay. What we have learned, I think you and I both, being early adopters ourselves, is that early adoption might not be as cool as we think it is. For example, here we go. Here we got, new vehicles, right? Acura Performance EV, that'll be an early adoption. The Alfa Romeos coming in 2025, that'll be an early adoption. Whatever that thing is early adoption. Now, these A6 e-trons, I mean, if you're into the Volkswagen EV powertrains, here they are. I won't say anything bad just for posterity, but a Bentley EV, that's an early adoption. This BMW i5M, I think probably isn't. It's just a variant. So what I've learned and what we probably have learned both, I mean, you can agree with me or not, through this early adoption initiative that you and I both have taken with EVs, is that early adoption is not all it's cracked up to be. So I don't know. I mean, if you want to early adopt and you want to grab the whatever, just be prepared to take the penalty, right? Your brother got a Cybertruck. It's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, I saw him yesterday, and one of the first things that he said to me was, "Hey, did you see this free supercharging now on the Cybertruck?" Right, and my response to him was, "Yeah, but you no longer get the home backup bidirectional charging setup." He's like, "Man, I totally." His response to me was, free supercharging should have been an option, right? And I would have taken that option every day of the week, right? Instead of the home backup setup. So he was definitely a little bit chafed about it, as I'm sure there are probably at this point thousands of other Foundation Series Cybertruck owners, but that's the reality of like you said, early adoption. And I'm in a place now, especially after the Fisker situation, of not necessarily wanting to be the first one out the gate anymore. I've been there, I've done that, and now I'm more so going to be looking for value. I'm going to be looking for stuff that's differentiated and not, and that's part of the reason why I think I've kind of outgrown Tesla at this point, right? Because I want to move it in a direction where there's still some rarity, some uniqueness, some specialness about the next vehicle, right? Versus, if you buy a Tesla, there's going to be one, you know, or more on the same block that you live on, let alone, outside your neighborhood. They're going to be everywhere.
So, in that vein, for me, I will continue to early adopt, but I put an asterisk beside that with a price cap. So I will continue to early adopt mainstream, uh, regular Joe, middle class user EVs, for the sake of reporting and understanding and being up to date with the technology. But I totally understand being grown out of Tesla. My wife will never. As soon as the warranty expires on the one she currently has, she will have another. And that's just, that's how we're going to roll with that. She will always have a full warranty on some Tesla model. Those are her decisions. She loves them. The benefits that she gets when you have somebody that gets in and out of a car, 30 times in one day, and you never have to carry a key and you never have to press a button. And, as long as you've got your
Just
phone.
get in and go, get out and walk away. I totally understand that for Connie.
Right. And once again, it comes down to those features that just aren't available anywhere else.
Yeah. So let's go back to mainstream for just a second, right? Because I will share that what our son got 2 days ago was a mainstream EV. And one of my biggest concerns, and I'm still waiting to see, the vehicle in terms of drivetrain, fit and finish, material quality. Um, it does have Android Automotive with Google, right? Um, but it hasn't been super intuitive, right? In terms of configuring and customizing the settings for him, for me. Um, and the larger concern is around the software, over the air updatability with this vehicle, right? Are they going to be able to update these cars, make them better over time? As we've seen Tesla and Rivian and other newer EV producers do. So I don't know if you have any thoughts around that. I mean, you've had the Prologue for a while now. What's been the OTA situation with that?
I mean, just take, and this is basically every brand but Tesla, and then maybe a couple exceptions, Lucid, Rivian being the two that come off the top of the head. Just take what you've got and look at the year and just assume that's what you've got. You've got a 24.
Not going to change.
It's a 24. There will be changes. They will be forced. They will be at the dealership. They will be necessary for continued operation. I believe that, I don't know, convenience and user experience and additional functionality are just out. Because at the end of the day, the business model of these companies is, we're going to give you everything for free. And at 3 years, it's going to become so expensive to own this car from subscriptions, you must buy another. That's the business model of basically all of them. It doesn't matter. GM is Blue Cruise or Super Cruise. Ford, it's Blue Cruise. Whatever you got to add, OnStar, whatever that suite, the BMW iDrive, whatever it is. We're gonna give this to you. Here is, your carrot. And when you have finished eating your carrot, you will need another vehicle, at which point we will give you another carrot. They want you $500, $600, $700, $800 a month for the rest of your life. That's just my thoughts.
Now, one of the things that I noticed in our buying process is that free charging, DC fast charging, is no longer really a thing. I mean, we looked at about 6 different models across 3 or 4 different manufacturers, and the Prologue was one of the ones that we looked at, and I think they were one of the only ones where they're still offering that $750 EVgo card for fast charging. But that seems to be something that's no longer being offered, at least in the lower priced everyman's EV category, as you put it a little bit earlier. So what are your thoughts on that? We knew it wouldn't last forever, but I was a little bit surprised to see that it's pretty much already gone.
I'm okay with it. Where are you at? 90%, 95%? You have another house that is, a triple digit trip that you make regularly as far as, frequency during the year. And you probably still, I would think, do 80% of your charging at home. So how much is it really hurting the consumer? What it does do is help the DC fast charging infrastructure, because adoption is way, way, way faster than this infrastructure is being developed. And so the fewer people who are charging for no reason, the better off it's going to be for those who have to. And that's kind of my thought. I think that getting people familiar with using it was a great, I guess, side effect of the incentives. But I think that this was necessary. It's just like, one of the other FUD items that people like to throw, oh, the grid won't be able to handle it. What, have we lost our ability to upgrade the grid? Like, what are you talking about? But,
So there's 2 things on that front. So we just saw the opening of IONNA. So why don't I let you talk about that and get your perspective on it, right? So that's a partnership of, more than a handful of OEMs that have come together to really go big, so to speak, on building out DC fast charging infrastructure across the country.
So, yeah, I mean, if you can bear with me here, I actually sent IONNA a message, and I'm always doing this to myself, but I can't help it. I sent an IONNA a message, and while I'm pulling it up, I will let you know that I have an extremely in-depth look at the comparison between gas stations, DC fast charging, and it's an IONNA-focused video. You can check it out on my channel, but it was in regards to the opening of IONNA, and this is what I said specifically to IONNA yesterday, just because at the end of the day, they've been receptive to feedback, and I believe the 8 automakers, let's see if we can get them: Toyota, Honda, Is there another Japanese? I can't remember. But then we got BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Stellantis, GM, and I've gotten some of them. Anyway, there are more. I'll put them on the screen. But I'm reaching out to let you know that regardless of amenities, location, or cost, I won't use IONNA stations until you establish a permanent nationwide price unless otherwise prohibited by local law. Any other solution creates confusion and invites price gouging, and every single time I can charge for less, I will. If you make charging as expensive as gas, you are not part of the solution. You are part of the problem. Your competitors are punishments for criminal activity and Tesla. If eight automakers can't eat some of the demand costs to offer something they should have offered 10 years ago, then you don't deserve 1 cent from me. That's my thoughts on IONNA.
Have you gotten a response from them?
Oh, I never will, but I have sent it to them.
Well, on behalf of everyone in the EV community, I thank you for speaking up on all of our behalf. I'm not sure if this is permanent, but what I'm hearing is they're charging 49 cents a kilowatt hour, right? It's on the higher end of things, but it's, anything under 50 cents a kilowatt hour, which obviously this is bumping right up against it, is reasonable, right? Especially if we're talking prime location, great amenities, right? Well lit, safe location, and so on.
So
Right? And reliable, fast charging, which, with these Alpitronic units, we should get that.
this is where I really like the dynamic that you and I have, because I could not disagree more. Let's do a per capita price, right? What's the average supercharger cost? 42 cents?
Something like that.
So you're 8 cents above average because there are so many Teslas on the road that the average is just going to be whatever Tesla offers. There are so many Teslas that charge at only Tesla that the average cost that a consumer right now is paying in the United States for fast charging is probably 42 cents. So 8 automakers have invested, the Lord knows how much money, and yet you can't even come in at the competition. It's gouging. It's horrible. I'll never give him $1.
So let me push back on that, right? The reason I'm pushing back is because, over the course of the last 2 years, we've sort of migrated from Tesla to non-Tesla vehicles, both of which have access to the supercharger network. And it wasn't until, we signed up to pay Tesla $13 a month that we got to a place of competitive per kilowatt hour charge rates with Tesla, right? And so with IONNA just starting out, I would imagine that they're going to do something similar, right? EVgo does this, Electrify America does this. It isn't until or unless you sign up for a membership plan that your rate comes down into that low 40s range, right? So that's why I would push back a little bit to say, let's give them a little more time, get their app up and running, which they still haven't done, right? Let's get their app up and running. Let's get their membership options out there, assuming that there are multiple, right? And then let's see how competitive it is. Because it did feel like I was being gouged by Tesla when I didn't have the monthly plan with them, right? Because those rates were always in the 50s.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. Well, that's my point, is that the goal of IONNA trying to match basically someone saying, hey, you should have bought our car, which is what Tesla's doing. You should have bought our car. You want to use our charger, you got to pay more. I'm not against it, but I mean, they've got the right because they installed the chargers. That's number one. And then on top of all that, the other 2 major competitors are literally federal penalties. So the only thing you can do is compete with a penalty. And this is the automaker's attempt. And once again, I can grandstand all I want, but it's the reality, and I'm not gonna stop it. But this is the automaker's attempt to make road tripping in an EV the exact same cost as gas. That's what their attempt is. They can charge 20 cents a kilowatt hour. They are writing all of this money off anyway. This is an attempt to keep charging expensive. They could take over the market. That's what if I'm a competitor, I'm going to say for 2 years, I'm going to beat everyone everywhere. And that is what, 32 cents a kilowatt hour? If every Iona station we're more convenient, we're better. It's literally what every automaker did. Said, hey, you know what? Here's 3 years free charging. Get used to using us, right? Iona is saying, no, we don't really need you to use us. We are just going to gouge you for convenience. And I will argue this until the day I die. 30 cents a kilowatt hour is what is fair. And if it's not fair, then the government needs to step in and make it fair. Because at the end of the day, we pay 1/3 of that. And demand charges aside, battery backup completely eliminates demand charges instantly. If you can invest $375,000 on 5 units, you can invest another $50,000, $100,000 on some battery backup to offset your demand charges. I will stand on top of a mountain and scream it until I run out of voice.
It sounds to me like you're almost advocating that we get some of those oil subsidies carried over to EV charging infrastructure.
Hey, man, I'll open a pocket if they're going to shove it in.
Well, I would encourage the audience here to comment below on the subject of, EV DC fast charging costs out there. Now, one of those things along those lines, Adam, that I know you and I talked about over the course of the last week, because here in Maryland, up until very recently, I just got this email about 2 weeks ago that we're going to have EV time of use charging available in Maryland. And I think, I know Texas had this. I'm not sure of other states, but it seemed very attractive, right? Our power company is looking to offload EV charging to low demand times. And they're obviously passing that on as an incentive to EV owners to charge at times when, the grid is underutilized. Any thoughts on that? I know you're not in a position in West Virginia to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, funniest thing, yesterday I had the longest power outage that I've had since I got my Powerwall. I was without power from 3 p.m. until 9 p.m. yesterday. Of course, I was the only, but if you looked around, it was black and dark outside, nothing except for me because I've got the Powerwall, obviously. But yeah, I think demand, and just a funny aside. Also, just really quickly, Tom Malogny did a video from the Scranton Iona, and one of the executives from Iona said they might freeze the introductory pricing to be the actual final pricing because of feedback. That's why I am aggressively attacking that. Now, to get back to your subject of demand charges, this is how you solve the grid. Screaming that we can't take EVs because there's too much electricity is not the answer. We need to incentivize people to behave within the current network of delivery that we have, and that's demand charges. And I know you said you were contemplating taking advantage of one of these programs. Did you go ahead? Did you pull the trigger on that?
Yeah, and it's probably something that I'll do a more in-depth video on, but the way this works out, right? We've got delivery charges and then we've got supplier charges, right? The delivery charges is not something we can do anything about. It's roughly 6 or 7 cents. And in my part of Maryland, it's Baltimore Gas and Electric. On the other side, where my brother lives, it's Pepco, right? So that's our delivery entity. On the other side of things, from a supply perspective, we've got different choices. And the choice that we chose to go with about a year and a half ago is roughly about 9 or 10 cents. So you combine those things, and We're currently at about 16, 17 cents per kilowatt hour today. The offer that was made is something they're calling free charge, and the off-peak window is only 4 of the 24 hours in a day, but it's between midnight and 4 a.m. where it drops down to $0 per kilowatt hour.
So free charging, supercharging forever.
Well, so that's the first thing. And all of our EVs, we currently have 5 at this location with my son's new one. All of them have the ability to schedule charging. So I've already set it up, right? Even though that plan, which I did go ahead and sign up for, but it doesn't start until mid-January. So I've got a couple more weeks to go for that, right? The trade-off, though, is that we're going from about 16 cents per kilowatt hour to 24 cents per kilowatt hour in on-peak times. And right, and that on-peak time is from 4:01 a.m., right, up until 11:59, which is obviously most of the day. But I happen to know that EV charging is a little more than half of our electricity usage, right? So if I can just rotate those vehicles over the course of each of the 7 days, right, and just have them charge for 4 hours a day between 12 and 4 a.m., it's free charging at that point. And so that's our plan. Um, I'm wondering if there's a dryer out there that I can go buy that allows me to schedule when it turns on to start drying our clothes, right? Because other than the EVs, the dryer is the next biggest power draw in the house.
Yeah, if you can, if you step into the 4-digit dryer, like the 4-figure dryer, there's nothing it can't do. So I'm sure they're out there.
But yeah, it's been a few years since we've bought a dryer, but
I think even the cheap ones do it. I think I've got a 10-year-old LG over here that can do it. So I'm pretty sure you should be. That might be something you can do.
maybe I need to start with the manual on the one we have now.
Hey, I mean, it is a place to start. Um, I'm, I one of my New Year's resolutions is learn a little bit about everything, and I think I do an okay job of that currently. But I think that those kind of things, the demand charted, those are coming, and the more that we know about them, uh, the more prepared we'll be to make those decisions. And you obviously have done the research. You know how many kilowatt hours your vehicles are using. You know what that cost is going to be, and you know what potential savings you've got. So I think you've done the math, and then maybe let us know. Maybe next year when we do this one, let us know how it went and whether you're going to keep it.
Yeah, as soon as that plan kicks in mid-January, maybe a month out, once I get the first electric bill, maybe that'll be the point where I put together a video, because you know how I am, right? I want to have the details. I want to have the data to be able to share with the audience. But I'm excited about it, and I'm not waiting until then. I've already set up every EV that we've got here in the driveway to only charge between 12 and 4. So that muscle memory is already started in the household.
Well, then you'll have some troubleshooting time to set it up. I know when somebody says, "What does it take to set up a video studio?" I'm like, "Well, 1 day to set up, 1 day to troubleshoot." So, as much effort as you might spend setting it up, you need an equal amount of time to get used to it, get it running, and make sure it works right. So, definitely good luck with that. I'm excited for the results.
Absolutely, man. I'll keep you and the audience posted on that. Now, let's shift gears a little bit, Adam, and start to really look ahead here into 2025. I know we want to get to, well, maybe we start there. Let's start with EV of the year for 2024 before we get to 2025. Do you want to go first, or you want me to go first? How do you want to do this?
Well, okay, so I suggested we do a runner-up, and then a best EV deal award, and then the actual vehicle of the year. Were you able to highlight all three of those yourself?
Yeah, I think I've got a good sense of car of the year.
Well, I'd be more than happy to look at my runner up, and then you let me know what yours is, and we can work our way backwards up that list.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so my runner up for EV of the year is the EV lease loophole.
It's not an EV.
No, but it is. It makes every EV a better deal. How many vehicles? Let's zoom in on Hyundai Kia. How many vehicles did they sell this year because of that loophole? You'd have to think it's 75%.
The vast majority of them.
Yeah. Right. So I'm not saying 75% were leases, but I am saying 75% of those that made a decision to buy one took that option into consideration. And that's why it's my runner up. There were great EVs this year. My actual real runner up is the EV9 from Kia because it offers an affordable 3-row option. If we can get into that, in fact, where's the van at? Brian, bring back the van. Not a $70,000 Volkswagen afterthought Halo car comedy act. Like, let's get a real van. Where's my town and country EV? Just for a joke, but seriously, where's the van? But I think the EV9 offering a competitive, affordable 3rd-row option is probably my real runner-up. But the EV lease loophole is I'm writing it in. It's a write-in vote. So, what about yours?
No, first of all, I love where you went with that, and it resonates because the last thing you have to do when you're buying a vehicle, you got to go sit down in the finance business manager's office and sign all the paperwork. Well, one of the things that he said to us was specifically around leasing, because that's ultimately what my son did, was he leased versus purchasing. And to quantify it, the business manager at the dealership said earlier in the year and in years past, we averaged about 3 leases per month. And as of 2 days ago, they were sitting at something like 38 leases on average every single month, right? So we're talking about order of magnitude, absolutely increase. So absolutely. For me, thinking about EVs, I think it came down to 2 for me. The 5N from Hyundai and the Cybertruck in terms of EVs of the year. Right. And that is what we're talking about, right? We're not talking about the deals yet.
Oh no, well, I mean, the runner up was exactly that. I mean, I left it open for that reason. So I could use EV lease really, but
yeah. And so I do think that and I did cancel my reservation and I have no regrets about that. But I do feel like the Cybertruck has to be the EV of the year, right? It just introduces a form factor that's been the top selling form factor, right? Ford F-150 for decades in this country. And it really takes that construct, flips it on its head, where the form is informing, function is informing what the form looks like, right? And the introduction of 48-volt electrical wiring within that vehicle, steer by wire, right? And some of those innovations that are somewhat under the skin. I just watched Jason Camisa's video introducing Cybertruck again this weekend. That dude's a hell of a storyteller and just underscores, all the technology that's in that vehicle. And knowing Tesla, they're going to perfect the manufacturing process, which is entirely new for this vehicle. And it's going to revolutionize the pickup truck industry, right? It's not for everybody, but I think there'll be elements of that technology stack from Cybertruck that we see adopted broadly across other pickup truck platforms and even non-pickup truck vehicle platforms.
I love it. I love the pick. And I'm going to agree to disagree, because my of the year award is the Ioniq 5N. And the reason the Cybertruck is not, because let's cover that first. The reason the Cybertruck is not for me is because the value proposition is upside down. There's no value proposition with the Cybertruck at 100K. It's awesome if you have 100K. Absolutely, it's a great pick. If you are just trying to get the most truck, period, other than range, it is that vehicle. The innovations are ridiculous, and they will be implemented, I believe, in parts in other vehicles. But my dream is that the Ioniq 5N's abilities are introduced in other vehicles, not poorly and inhumanely like the Dodge, what is it, Charger, whatever, the horrible EV that they released, but in a way that Hyundai delivered it. They took gas engine emotional performance and installed it in the fastest thing on four wheels. I don't think it's the fastest car in a straight line, but it just beat the Model 3 performance in the U-Drag, and that was kind of the tipping point for me. I'm like, okay, if you can beat the benchmark in the U-Drag, then even if it takes the N-Grin boost to do it, the Ioniq 5,
And it did.
yeah,
You did take the Engrin boost to do it.
yeah, oh, definitely. But I really do think that, and I don't. This is my big thing with, and then now you mentioned Haggerty. My big thing with the mainstream auto things is you can't trust them. Over the years, they've proven infinitely in every conceivable way you cannot trust them. So I don't know if the Model 3 performance actually lost that race. I believe that the 0-60 time they provided, sure. But I know they did that test 30 times. And to say that the Ioniq 5N won every time in every lane with either driver, there's no way. But with that aside, I want those features that are flawlessly implemented in the 5N regarding the gas car performance. I want them in everything. Every vehicle needs to have that mode. It doesn't need to be as impressive or as in-depth or as customizable as the 5N, but let me get a shift mode. Let me get a gurgle here and there, and especially that the throttle the red line. Let me get a red line in every vehicle.
Every time I think about that, I think about that scene in The Matrix where I forget the character's name, right? But he's sitting at the table, he's eating the steak, right? And he's talking about the fact that I know this isn't real, right? I know that there's a signal being sent to my brain, right? And it's manipulating me, right? And that's exactly what I think about with the Ioniq 5N. So I understand and I appreciate what they've done with it. I think in the next iteration, they need to simplify it because I do think it's way too configurable, right? Or they at least need to put an abstraction layer on top of that to make it much more simple for folks who aren't, um, you know, regulars at a drag strip track, um, and are just looking to use this thing as a daily driver or a weekend driver so that it's easier to take advantage of some of those capabilities that they've built into it.
Well, the good news is they already have, and it's called the EV6 GT, because the new EV6 GT will have a dumbed down version of that exact same software already. So they've already done what you're looking for. They've already done it. Because that N badge is it's coveted. It has a lot of meaning, and it's kind of like the Halo badge for that entire company. So they won't give you all of those options with the Kia EV6 GT, but they said some of them are coming. At least that's my understanding.
Well, I can't wait to see it. We did go to a Kia dealership over the last few days, and almost every EV6 on the lot was an EV6 GT line. So looking forward to seeing the new ones come out with the NAX J3800 plugs or inlets in them, and some of those capabilities from the Ioniq 5N. Well, what did you vote as your best deal?
Oh, well, in my opinion, it has to be something I bought. It has to be something I actually own and can say, or at least I have experience with, and I don't review cars. Manufacturers aren't throwing cars to me, so I have to give it to the 2024 Model 3 long range. I mean, it is 340 miles for 35,000 or, give or take. I cannot be beat, in my opinion.
So I would say my runner-up there is the Prologue, based on some of the deals that I saw over the course of the last week and a half, right? We're talking MSRP 57, 56K, Honda Prologue Tourings, and in some cases, even the Elite, right? And they're offering those vehicles with like zero money down leases, and you're out the door for about $300, right? So that's an awful lot of car that you're able to get with some of the incentives that Honda has put in place to move those units off dealer lots. We saw something similar with the Chevy Equinox, and I don't know if it's because the Bolt has been discontinued, and this is now their least expensive EV option. But those two vehicles had some stellar deals available on them in the last week or so of 2024. So it's a close vote between those two for me.
Okay. Good news. I mean, I don't know when, but it's been confirmed definitely different ways. But the Chevy Bolt will be back this year. It will be
Yes,
back.
looking forward to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, man, GM has always known how to put four wheels in your hand. And, I bought a Bolt this year too. And man, I mean, for the money, it's unbelievably, good for what I paid and what I ended up with. And I agree with you on, basically the GM products and the leases. Because, we all know the Honda Prologue is a GM product. And, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The Honda Prologue is the establishment of a fan base with Honda brand loyalty. So they are trying to push these out, made by GM. Obviously, that partnership's over. It's not going to happen again, at least in this capacity. But they're trying to get a set of people that are coming back in a couple years or so to get another Honda EV. And I know they'll release at least one, either this year or next. So, kudos to them for offering a great deal. And I can't argue as far as those values. But for me, now those are actually cheaper than a Model 3 as far as taking them home, especially when you get into the leases. But the reason the Model 3 won for value for me is it's those features. It's the unstoppable, uncomparable, uh, you know, base model gets it all spec Tesla, that they've been just absolutely great at mastering over the last decade.
So this wasn't a part of our script or rundown of topics, but I was talking to my son and I asked him, why don't we go look at Model 3 or Model Y, new or used? And before I could get the statement out of my mouth, he was like, hell no. Had no interest in going down that path. And I like, why? And his response was Elon Musk, right? He said a bunch of other things beyond that, but I bring that up to say, what are your thoughts? Because as a part of this administration coming in, obviously he's going to play a significant role, but I wonder how you think it would impact Tesla at this point, being the most valuable um, automobile manufacturer in the world. how do you think it would impact the company if he were to step down as chairman and CEO?
Well, I mean, we both know that's not going to happen. So, and it's really hard to separate them. Number two, also, yeah, like that, you got to understand that that is the whole reason Elon Musk is has everything. Is Tesla. You know, SpaceX is a cool pet project to go to Mars. The other one's Neuralink. You know, all that we can. You know, I can put.
Well, he wouldn't have to, divest or sell all of his stock, right? He can still keep it. It'll still
So, in
it'll
the interest
probably
of that your son's response, it is my opinion. Once again, this is an opinion, and it's a hot take. That the reason he influenced, I mean, okay, the reason he spent so much effort, let's just for the sake of argument say, on the 2025 election, 2024 election is because he needs that bonus. You know, the $50 billion bonus. That was struck down in court. It's going to go to the
twice.
Supreme it's going to go to the Supreme Court. He needs it. He wants it. Well, I don't know, want and need at $140 billion for a person are kind of easy to separate, but he wants that bonus. And I think that his fail-safe approach was to get involved in this election and be able to have a voice in the White House. So I don't think he did it because of his politics. I don't think he did it because of what he thinks or what his goals are as far as, you know, political ideology. But I do think it was that 50 billion. I mean, that's a pretty big incentive. Is it not?
Oh, yes, in a word, right? And I think, for him, it's the principle of the matter, right? It's incentive based, and well, we'll see what comes of it. Uh, Feels like we've gone through most of our rundown. Let's shift gears, as I said earlier, and talk about um, two last topics related to 2025. Let's start with any new EVs in 2025, and you did share a few of them there earlier that are coming, but any specific EVs that you're excited about that should be coming out in 2025?
I mean, so I don't know if, you know, there's that Charger Daytona. That was what, and we can look at some of these. I mean, a Ferrari EV, that's no impact on the market. You know, will we get the Explorer? Who knows? Um, I don't really have any, you know, that's that early adopter in me saying, whoa, 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 back up, buddy. Um, you know, the Ionic 9 obviously is going to be great. I think Jaguar is a hilarious joke, and that was really funny. And if they sell some EVs, that'll be cool. Um, but if you look at this list, is there really anything that's? I mean, the Jeep Recon, that's cool, but you know what Jeep people are going to think? That's not cool. So the EV3, if we get that, that'll be exciting. I think the EX30 is exciting, even though it's technically been around. You know, people in Europe are going to be like, "Well, that's old news." A Kia EV4. I mean, you know, some of this stuff it doesn't matter. Lamborghini, Land Rover. It's not going to have a big effect on the market. But it's these the smaller. Here's how I'll sum up my opinion. The smaller and cheaper it is, the more impact it will have. Because at the end of the day, the United States is okay at building reliable, large, long range EVs. But until we get better at the $25,000 move as many as you can, China is going to shut us all down if we don't. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I think the Bolt that you mentioned earlier, in that same vein, I'm excited to see what they do with that. Um, One of the dealerships that we were at over the course of the last week was a Chevy dealership. I published a video, Chevy Cadillac. It's a joint dealership there. Published a video this week on the new Escalade, right? But I want to see that they actually had one of the Chevy Bolts with a V. on the lot, right? And that car looked beautiful. It was still in great shape, right? And like you said, they know how to build uh, good vehicles. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the next iteration of the Chevy Bolt. Um, I'm not as excited about and I'm not sure that it will be here, the Volvo EX30, because I feel like the Kia Niro, the Kona EV, um, some of the other smaller SUVs will give it a lot of competition. I'm more so excited about that Kia EV3, but I'm also really excited about what Polestar is doing, right? I did a video a couple weeks ago on the Polestar 4. Cannot wait to see that vehicle on the streets. They also have the Polestar 5, which is their Model S, Lucid Air, um, Audi A6 or Porsche Taycan competitor, right? I want to see what that looks like, but I'm tired of the six-figure price tag on a lot of these EVs, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these price tags come down quite significantly, right? So that they become more and more accessible to more and more people. So
And
those are a couple that I'm looking forward to.
that's the exact same argument I have about charging. Um, it is not an adoption problem anymore. It is a charging problem that we have. Once again, this is strictly opinion and, all the way to the speculation end of the spectrum here. But if I live in an apartment, which, 10 years ago I did, and if I live in an apartment and I live, let's say I live well, because at the end of the day, we all know you have children that are of, the 18 to 25 age range. You know what I mean? We know how much apartments cost. So it's not like I'm living in some kind of, affordable type of situation, but I live in an apartment. I have a solid employment. I've got a family, let's say, and I want an EV. The answer literally right now is no. Now your area, or at least very close, DC did right to charge, which I have read, highlighted, and I've spent a good 10 hours reading that entire bill, and it has everything that you need. If you'd like to install charging, you can. You must pay. Your landlord must allow it, and when you leave, you must uninstall if the landlord wants. But those kinds of things are what we need. And at the end of the day, DC fast charging has to be the crutch until then. And making it the same cost as gas, I don't care what my lease is. If I drive for a living, which, that same apartment dweller person, we can easily imagine they do a lot of driving. Um, if I drive a lot, this cost savings that we're all taking advantage of right now. I mean, you're even going to zero when it comes to charging your EV. Um, they can't take advantage of that. 50 cents a kilowatt hour, every kilowatt hour that you spend, that's an expensive car to drive. And regardless of efficiency, even if it is all in town, you're still paying a lot of money. That's a monthly charging cost right around what a Corolla would be. And why not get
So
the Corolla?
I do think we'll start to see more of this come to fruition. So I'll share two things with you. As we were out shopping for an EV over the last week and a half, I talked to a gentleman that was in the showroom getting ready to buy one. Lives here in Maryland, and told me that his house was built in the last 5 years, and it was mandated that it have EV charging in the garage, right? And at least an outlet. So there was a NEMA 1450 outlet in the garage. So we're starting to see more of what you just described in DC coming to fruition in other municipalities. So that's great. The other thing that I'll mention is we're going to see more and more businesses put in EV charging as an attraction to get more butts through the doors, so to speak, right? As my son and I were having a conversation about how he's going to charge his EV, right? When we started this process months ago, we were talking about the possibility of having free charging, right? That didn't come to fruition. But, as we started to look around just within a 5-mile radius of the house here, right? The giant shopping center less than 5 minutes from here has two 40-amp chargers that are free to use, right? So that's one example. And then there's another one across the street where it's like $1 an hour or so to be able to charge there. So I think we'll start to see more and more of this as some of that funding that was earmarked as a part of the IRA to build out this infrastructure. We'll start to see that stuff come to fruition, both in terms of DC fast charging as well as level 2 charging in communities.
I would love to, I agree with you that we will see more, but, the American parking lot is probably the next step. If the grocery store has it and the town center has it and the mall has it, not like one,
Yeah.
but 15. And so my thing is, if you can put 120 volt light, why not put a level 1 there as well? We don't need level 2, but if you can if you drive 3 miles to the mall, which I mean, very conceivable, right? To drive 3 miles to the mall. If you drive 3 miles to the mall and you charge for 1 hour at the mall on a level 1, you've covered your trip, right? I'm not saying level 1 is the right answer, but like you said, you already hit the nail on the head. This study right here from MIT says, that adding a charging station boosted revenue by 1.4% in 2019 and 0.8% from January 21 to June 2023. So adding charging works. I know as an EV owner at this point, I know that's true. And the more businesses figure that out, the better it's going to be. Our side is different. We have literally a program called Rural Reimagined. If you call them, they will give you a charger. It is that bad here. You don't even need money if you're a business to install. By the time you do the electric company incentives and the tax credits along with this Rural Reimagined, I get one for free as long as I call you, then there's no cost. And you can get a DC fast charger for that. It's not fast, but 50 kilowatts. And so there are still some minds to change to be politically correct, but there are some minds to change, I think, in the landscape before we see adoption anywhere. I think just like everything else, West Virginia is 10 years behind. And if you look at what California might have looked like 10 years ago, or maybe even 15, that's probably what we look like now.
Well, I'm excited for 2025 and what it has in store for the EV movement. Regardless of what, obviously we'll wait and see what the new administration does in terms of any changes that they choose to implement. But I'm excited about it. Why don't we talk a little bit, but before we close out here about any plans for our channels? You want to go for it first, or?
Sure. So I know, and you seem like a goal-oriented guy, and my goal in 2025 is maybe this is too simple, but is simply to press publish. I'm just not going to be scared of the publish button. I want to be a stopgap where coverage is needed. If there's things that are going on, I feel like that need more highlighting. For example, like my Iona video, those are things that like maybe a little deeper dive can do. I think that's a skill set I have to help the EV community. Also, this is for 2025 and going forward, I am considering one permanent channel sponsor. Otherwise, no money, no free products, no affiliates, absolutely no outside influence, except for members, patrons, and viewers. And I want that to be something that separates me from as many folks as possible. And I think that as my subscribership grows, that's going to be a, a more exclusive highlight. And I refuse to accept anything for free or money from companies in the EV game. I just, if somebody wants to say, hey, come down to Sam's Car Wash, I'll take him as a channel sponsor. But inside everything related to EVs specifically, no affiliates, no links, no money, no free products ever going forward forever.
Well, definitely looking forward to seeing you do more work like what you did with that Ayana video, and seeing some of the content shifts that come as a result of you looking to hit publish, and do some more of that sort of varied work.
Yeah, well, also, yeah, you happen to have like a really advantageous situation, and I think you've got some plans for how to use that in relationship to your channel.
Yeah, over the course of the last couple of weeks, helping my son, and also thinking about, you know, what am I going to do with this Tesla Model S? I feel like it's the one vehicle that I think I'm ready to move on from. I recognize that I've got great proximity here to a lot of different EV options and dealerships. And so I'm looking forward to doing more of those reviews, working with the EV specialists at the different dealerships, and just having them, join me for a walkthrough, test drive, um, understanding of, what's going on with the different EV options. So people have a sense of, what it might be like to live with those vehicles. What is the one thing they might consider? And I appreciate your suggestion, of, what's the reason that it may not be in my driveway, right? Or the one thing that keeps me from buying it, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is I want to do a take on Emmanuel Acho from 2020 with Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. I think is what he called that series. I want to do some more one-on-one interviews with folks, and I'm going to call that EV Conversations with an OG, right? Where we talk about different aspects of EV adoption with people from, different spectrums of background, and share different insights there. And then the last thing is really just to continue with this podcast, um, hopefully on a monthly basis. That's kind of a catch-all to help us dig in and talk about, some of the things that's going on in the EV world. It's a way to put a camera in front of some of the conversations that you and I have, either on your road trips or my road trips, or, on a weekend when we get together and just chop it up.
Well, I'm excited for it, and I really am. I'm excited for your takes because, you know, with the Rivian, you had a lot of choices there. With the, like you said, you had a Cybertruck reservation. You chose to go with the Rivian, and the Rivian's not like you don't need a truck, but you decided, hey, this is the vehicle I want to try, and there were reasons for that. There were really specific, honest things that you decided this is really why I want this vehicle. And obviously those have changed and evolved. And, over time, it seems to me like you've made a really solid choice, especially driving those Gen 2 Rivians and some of the things you were able to take advantage of with that initial release. And just knowing what your take is and knowing with all the experience you've had over the years, why something specifically, is or isn't the best look, the best value, the best decision for somebody else. I'm really excited to hear your take because over the year, and I want to thank you and every one of the viewers of Brian's channel, you guys for subscribing, because I think Brian's take is something that's been just extraordinary to have. And the proof is in the pudding, right? MKBHD quoted you this year.
Yeah, that was definitely a highlight. I remember that video that he dropped on the Fisker Ocean happened during my golf trip down to Florida last February. And I didn't plan on responding, but I remember talking to you about it and thinking about it on my flight back home to Maryland. And that night, putting out the rebuttal, and it's still, the most watched video on my channel. That thing is probably approaching 30,000 views now, right? And what was really cool was, I think, a couple days later, to see it might not have even been that long, right? To see him comment on the video, and it was a complimentary comment. And then I think a few weeks later on his Waveform podcast, he actually made reference to one of the comments I made in that video, calling it a great bar, I think is what the millennials call it. But definitely that was the highlight of 2024 for me and the channel. But very much looking forward to 2025, continuing this partnership with you, and seeing where the journey goes next, man.
Yeah, it's been a good year as far as EVs overall, I think. I'm also of an optimistic point of view about the new administration. I'm not going to borrow any trouble, and I'm here to report, observe, and report. And like I said, try to be a stopgap in an ever-growing community. And I invite you definitely right now, subscribe, hit like button so other people can check this video out. But definitely check out Brian's channel. It's worth every minute of watch time. Definitely check it out. Brian, it's been awesome kind of catching up and getting the year summed up here. Our final picks: Cybertruck, car of the year for Brian. I've got a 5N if you need an alternative. And I think those probably are great representations of the two biggest innovations in the EV market this year. And just thanks again for having me on the channel, man. It's always a pleasure. And you've grown a lot this year, and I can't wait to see what happens next year.
I appreciate it, Adam. Thanks for the partnership. Thank you to all the viewers who subscribed and interacted with the video content. Please continue to do the same. Move over to Adam's Everything EV and subscribe and check out his content as well. And wish everyone the most prosperous 2025 possible. And we'll look forward to catching you guys on the next one. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brian.